The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, embedded in every digital device across Earth simultaneously. No hack, no breach, just perfect synchronization across billions of screens. The text appeared in every language, every script, even Braille displays adapted instantly to the civilization of Sol 3. The Galactic Collective has determined your species has reached the threshold of assessment. You have 30 planetary rotations to complete the trial of ascension. Failure will result in permanent quarantine. Success will grant membership among the stars. The trial begins now. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her quantum computer's display, her coffee forgotten and cold. The same message that had appeared on her phone, tablet, and every screen in her laboratory at CERN now pulsed gently on her primary research interface. As head of the Quantum Consciousness Project, she'd spent 15 years trying to prove that consciousness itself had quantum properties. Now, as she watched the message fade and be replaced by a complex series of mathematical equations, she realized her research might have attracted unwanted attention. The equations weren't just math. They were a test. Each solution led to another, more complex problem. But Sarah noticed something odd about their structure. These weren't just arbitrary challenges. They formed a pattern that seemed to probe not just for mathematical ability, but for ethical reasoning and creative thinking. Dr. Chen, her assistant, Marcus Wong, burst into the lab. The UN Security Council is requesting immediate video conference. They're gathering every scientist who might make sense of this. Sarah nodded, but her eyes never left the screen. Tell them I'll join in 10 minutes. I need to verify something first. As Marcus left, Sarah began typing furiously. The equations weren't just problems to be solved. They were communication. Each solution revealed a piece of the collective's technology, their history, their biology. But solving them exactly as presented would mean accepting their underlying assumptions about physics, ethics, and the nature of intelligence itself. Across the globe, other scientists were reaching similar conclusions. Dr. Yuki Tanaka in Tokyo recognized patterns matching theoretical work on dark energy. Dr. Mohammed Al-Rashid in Dubai identified sequences suggesting advanced quantum entanglement. Professor Elena Popov in Moscow found correlations with her research on collective consciousness. But it was Dr. James Okonjo in Nairobi who first voiced what Sarah was beginning to suspect. During the emergency UN conference, his deep voice cut through the chaos of competing theories. These aren't just tests of our scientific knowledge, he said. They're testing our values, our assumptions, our very way of thinking. And I believe they expect us to fail. Sarah unmuted her video feed. Dr. Okonjo is right. I've analyzed the pattern of these equations. They're designed to lead us down a specific path of reasoning, one that accepts their fundamental assumptions about consciousness, free will, and the nature of intelligence. The UN Secretary-General leaned forward. What are you suggesting, Dr. Chen? I'm suggesting that this isn't just a test of our capabilities. It's a test of our independence. The solutions they want would require us to abandon some of our most basic scientific and philosophical principles. They're not testing if we're smart enough to join them. They're testing if we're compliant enough. The revelation sent shockwaves through the scientific community. As days passed, more evidence supported Sarah's theory. The equations weren't just problems. They were propaganda, encoded in mathematics. They subtly pushed toward accepting a deterministic universe, a hierarchical structure of consciousness, and a rigid ethical framework that placed order above innovation. But humanity didn't react as expected. Instead of struggling to solve the equations as presented, scientists worldwide began questioning their premises. They found alternative solutions based on human models of physics and consciousness. They challenged the embedded assumptions about ethics and free will. The collective had made a crucial mistake. They assumed any civilization advanced enough to detect their test would be desperate to pass it on their terms. They hadn't counted on a species whose greatest strength was questioning everything, even the questions themselves. As the deadline approached, Sarah made a breakthrough. Hidden in the deepest layers of the equations was a pattern she recognized from her own research, a quantum signature that suggested consciousness itself might be the key to interstellar communication. The collective hadn't just found Earth. They'd detected the unique way human consciousness interacted with quantum fields. "We don't need to solve their equations," she announced to the Global Science Council on day 28. "We need to show them why their equations are incomplete." The next 48 hours saw the greatest collaborative scientific effort in human history. Scientists from every field worked together to craft a response that would demonstrate humanity's unique perspective. They weren't going to pass the collective's test. They were going to challenge its very foundations. On the final day, as the deadline loomed, Earth transmitted its response. Instead of solutions, they sent questions. Instead of accepting the collective's assumptions, they demonstrated alternative frameworks. Where the collective expected submission, they received innovation. The response was immediate. New text appeared on screens worldwide. In 300,000 assessments, no species has ever questioned the trial itself. You are either the most brilliant or most dangerous civilization we have encountered. Perhaps both. The quarantine is lifted. We await direct contact with your Dr. Chen and her colleagues. There is much we need to discuss. Sarah stared at her screen, a smile playing at her lips. Humanity's greatest test hadn't been solving the equations. It had been daring to question them. In doing so, they'd proven themselves worthy of the stars, not by following the path laid out for them, but by blazing their own. The collected ship appeared in Earth's orbit exactly 1 week after their last message. It defied every known law of physics, a structure of impossible geometries that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Dr. Sarah Chen watched it through Seorn's quantum telescopes, noting how it appeared to flicker in and out of various quantum states. "It's like they're showing off," Marcus commented, adjusting the sensors. "Every time we think we understand what we're looking at, it changes." Sarah nodded, her mind racing. "That's exactly what they're doing. They're demonstrating their superiority, or at least trying to." She turned to her colleague, Dr. Isabella Torres, who had been analyzing the ship's energy signatures. "What have you found?" Isabella looked up from her data streams, her eyes bright with excitement. "It's incredible. They're using quantum entanglement on a macroscopic scale, something we thought impossible. But," she paused, frowning, "there's something odd about their approach. It's incredibly efficient, but also rigid, almost predictable." The collective had requested a small delegation of Earth's leading scientists for their first face-to-face meeting. Sarah, along with Dr. Okonjo, Dr. Torres, and 3 others, would represent humanity. The meeting would take place on neutral ground, a space station they would construct in Earth's orbit within hours. As the team prepared for departure, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The collective's technology was centuries ahead of Earth's, yet their methods seemed to lack something essential. Their solutions were perfect, but somehow sterile. The space elevator that would take them to the station materialized like a silver thread connecting Earth to sky. As they ascended, Sarah studied her fellow delegates. Dr. Okonjo was reviewing his notes on consciousness theory, Dr. Torres was running last-minute calculations, and Dr. Yuki Tanaka was mediating, her mind likely racing through quantum equations. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, a perfect sphere of what appeared to be living metal, constantly adapting to maintain optimal conditions. They were greeted by beings that defied description, forms that shifted between states of matter, their consciousness apparently distributed across multiple bodies simultaneously. "Welcome, children of Earth," the beings communicated directly into their minds. "We are the consensus, representatives of the collective. Your species has intrigued us." The next several hours were a crash course in galactic civilization. The collective, they learned, had existed for millions of years, guiding the development of countless species. Their technology had mastered the fundamental forces of the universe. Their society had eliminated conflict, poverty, and uncertainty. But as the humans asked questions and observed their hosts, Sarah began to notice patterns. The collective's responses, while incredibly advanced, followed predictable paths. Their solutions, though perfect, lacked variation. Even their consciousness, distributed across multiple forms, seemed to operate within rigid parameters. During a break in the discussions, Sarah pulled her team aside. "Do you see it?" she whispered. "They've optimized themselves into a corner. They've eliminated chaos, uncertainty, and inefficiency so completely that they've lost something crucial, the ability to truly innovate." Dr. Okonjo nodded slowly. "Their consciousness is distributed but uniform. They think as one. Perfectly, but without the creative friction that comes from genuine individuality. That's why they were so surprised by our response to their test." Dr. Torres added, "They've become so efficient that they can no longer think outside their own parameters." The revelation changed the entire dynamic of the meeting. The humans began to understand that the collective hadn't just been testing Earth. They had been searching for something they'd lost. Humanity's primitive and inefficient way of thinking. Individual minds working together while maintaining their unique perspectives had produced something the collective couldn't replicate. When the consensus returned, Sarah took a risk. "You didn't invite us here just to welcome us to galactic civilization, did you?" she asked. "You need us. You need our chaos, our inefficiency, our ability to think in ways that you no longer can." The consensus was silent for a long moment. When they responded, their mental voice carried a new emotion, something close to hope. "For 1,000,000 years, we have optimized, refined, and perfected our existence. We have guided younger species to follow our path. But in doing so, we have reached the limits of our own evolution. Your species, you think in ways we have forgotten were possible." "Then perhaps," Dr. Tanaka suggested, "this is an opportunity for both our species to learn from each other. We could benefit from your knowledge and efficiency, while you could rediscover the benefits of chaos and individual variation." The proposal sparked something unprecedented, genuine debate among the consensus. For the first time in eons, the perfectly unified consciousness of the collective experienced disagreement. Some found the idea threatening, others fascinating. The humans watched in amazement as the beings literally split into different forms, representing different viewpoints. Sarah realized they were witnessing something historic, not just for humanity, but for the collective itself. Their interaction with Earth had already begun to change them, introducing tiny elements of chaos into their perfect system. The question was, would they embrace this change or reject it? The answer came in a form none of them expected. The consensus reformed, but not into its original unified state. Instead, it maintained subtle variations, like a symphony of slightly different notes creating a richer harmony. "We propose an exchange," they announced, "not merely of knowledge, but of perspectives. We offer you access to our technology and understanding of the universe. In return, we wish to study how your minds work, not to change them, but to learn from their beautiful inefficiency." As Sarah and her colleagues exchanged glances, they realized that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy might not be their scientific achievements or technological potential, but their very imperfection. Their ability to think in ways that defied optimization, their capacity to find brilliant solutions precisely because they didn't follow the most efficient path. The changes began subtly at first. 3 months into the human collective exchange program, Sarah noticed the first anomaly. The collective's quantum interfaces, once rigidly predictable, had started displaying unexpected variations. It was as if exposure to human consciousness was introducing tiny irregularities into their perfect systems. "Look at this," Dr. Torres called out from her workstation in the Joint Research Facility. The massive structure, now orbiting Earth, housed teams of human scientists working alongside collective entities. The quantum field signatures are evolving. They're becoming more organic. Sarah moved to examine the data. The collective's quantum networks had always operated with machine-like precision, Now they showed patterns remarkably similar to human neural networks, less efficient perhaps, but more adaptable, more creative. It's not just their technology, Dr. Okonjo added, joining them. The consensus itself is changing. They're developing individual preferences. He gestured to where several collective entities were engaged in what appeared to be a debate, their forms shifting in increasingly unique patterns. The implications were staggering. The collective, a civilization that had prided itself on perfect unity for millions of years, was experiencing differentiation. Some entities were developing distinct personalities, preferred certain forms over others, even showed emotional responses that went beyond their usual logical processes. Not everyone was pleased with these developments. A faction within the collective, led by an entity that called itself Primary Protocol, viewed these changes with alarm. They argued that the introduction of human chaos threatened the very foundation of their civilization. We must contain this corruption, Primary Protocol announced during an emergency session of the collective's governing assembly. Its form remained rigidly geometric, refusing the fluid shifts that had become common among those working closely with humans. The human influence spreads like a virus, introducing inefficiencies and irregularities into our perfect system. But others, including many of the entities who had worked directly with the human scientists, defended the changes. An entity that had begun calling itself Nexus Prime, known for its particularly close collaboration with Dr. Chen's team, took an unprecedented stand. What you call corruption, it communicated, its form swirling with complex patterns, I call evolution. For too long we have confused perfection with stagnation. The humans haven't infected us with chaos. They've reminded us of possibilities we have forgotten. The debate spread throughout the collective's vast network of worlds and stations. For the first time in countless millennia, the collective experienced genuine internal conflict. Some systems began experimenting with human-inspired variations, while others locked down, rejecting any deviation from traditional protocols. Sarah and her team watched these developments with a mixture of fascination and concern. They had expected to learn from the collective's advanced technology, but instead, they found themselves at the center of a civilizational transformation. We should consider slowing down the integration, Marcus suggested during a team meeting. If we're causing this much disruption, it's too late for that, Dr. Tanaka interrupted. The change has already begun. The question isn't whether to continue, but how to ensure the transformation doesn't tear their civilization apart. The crisis point came sooner than anyone expected. Primary Protocol, backed by a significant faction of traditionalists, attempted to sever all quantum links with Earth and its influence, but the network had already evolved beyond their control. The human-inspired variations had introduced a level of quantum entanglement that couldn't be simply undone. The attempt to purge the system had an unexpected effect. Instead of eliminating the human influence, it created a cascade of quantum interactions that forced the entire network to adapt or collapse. The collective faced a choice: embrace change or risk destroying everything they had built. In that moment of crisis, it was the humans who provided a solution. Sarah and her team had been studying the collective's quantum consciousness architecture, not just from a technical perspective, but with an understanding of how human minds balance unity and individuality. Your civilization doesn't have to choose between perfect unity and complete chaos, Sarah explained to the assembled collective consciousness. Look at how human minds work. We maintain individual identities while still being able to work together, to form communities, to share ideas and emotions. It's not about choosing one extreme or the other. It's about finding a balance. Dr. Torres stepped forward, displaying a complex quantum model. We've developed a framework that could help you maintain your network's stability while allowing for individual variation. It's based on how human neural networks adapt and evolve while maintaining core functionality. The proposal sparked intense debate throughout the collective. Even Primary Protocol, faced with the potential collapse of their civilization, began to see the wisdom in adaptation. The solution wasn't to reject change, but to guide it, to find a way to preserve their civilization's strengths while embracing new possibilities. Over the following weeks, the collective underwent a transformation unlike anything in its long history. The rigid hierarchy of their consciousness network evolved into something more fluid, more resilient. Individual entities began developing unique characteristics while maintaining their connection to the greater whole. What emerged was something entirely new, neither the perfect uniformity of the old collective nor the chaotic individuality of humanity, but a hybrid that combined the strengths of both. Their technology, once coldly efficient, began showing signs of genuine innovation. Their society, once static and unchanging, started to evolve in unexpected ways. For Sarah and her team, it was both thrilling and humbling to witness. They had come seeking to learn from a superior civilization, only to find that their own human nature, with all its imperfections and irregularities, held secrets that even the most advanced beings in the galaxy have forgotten. News traveled faster than light across the quantum networks that connected the galaxy's civilizations. The transformation of the collective, the oldest, most advanced civilization known to exist, sent shockwaves through every species advanced enough to understand its implications. The perfect mentors of countless civilizations were changing, evolving, becoming something new and unpredictable. Dr. Sarah Chen found herself addressing representatives from dozens of species, each struggling to understand what these changes meant for their own development. The massive conference chamber aboard the Joint Research Station had been modified to accommodate beings of wildly different biologies and consciousness structures. The collective's transformation doesn't invalidate their guidance, she explained to the assembled delegates. It expands it. They're discovering that true advancement isn't just about technological progress. It's about maintaining the ability to grow, to change, to see things in new ways. But not every civilization welcomed this perspective. The hierarchs of Proxima Centauri, a species that had modeled their entire society on the collective's former perfect order, were particularly disturbed. Their ambassador, a crystalline being that communicated through precisely modulated light patterns, expressed their concerns. "You've introduced chaos into the greatest civilization in existence," the hierarch protested, its crystal facets flashing with agitation. "Now that chaos spreads throughout the galaxy, undermining millennia of careful development, how many species will be corrupted by this human disorder?" Dr. Isabella Torres stepped forward, her holographic displays showing data from across the galaxy. "What you call corruption, we call growth. Look at these readings. Species that have begun incorporating elements of human-inspired variation are showing unprecedented rates of technological and social innovation." The evidence was undeniable. Civilizations that embraced the new hybrid approach were advancing rapidly, developing technologies and solving problems that had stumped them for generations. The rigid hierarchies and perfect systems that had once seemed the pinnacle of advancement were giving way to more dynamic, adaptable structures. But this progress came with complications. Some species, attempting to force rapid change, threw their societies into chaos. Others, resistant to any deviation from established patterns, found themselves increasingly isolated as the galaxy around them evolved. The collective itself, still adjusting to its own transformation, struggled to handle these widespread effects. Nexus Prime, now one of the leading voices in the transformed collective, called an emergency session with the human science team. "We need your help," it communicated, its form shifting through patterns that reflected its concern. "Our guidance helped shape the development of countless civilizations. Now those civilizations look to us, but we ourselves are still learning to balance unity and variation. How do we help them navigate changes we barely understand ourselves?" Sarah and her colleagues found themselves in an unprecedented position, teaching the teachers of the galaxy. But as they worked with various species, they discovered that each civilization needed to find its own balance. What worked for one species could be disastrous for another. The key, Dr. Okonjo explained during a particularly challenging consultation with a hive mind species, isn't to copy Earth's pattern or the collective's new structure. It's to understand your own nature and find ways to incorporate beneficial change while maintaining your essential characteristics. The process wasn't always smooth. The hierarchs of Proxima Centauri, after initially rejecting all change, experienced a sudden and chaotic revolution that threatened to tear their civilization apart. It was only through the combined effort of human mediators and transformed collective entities that they found a path to stable evolution. Other species surprised everyone with their adaptability. The quantum swarms of Antares, previously thought to be purely mechanical in nature, revealed a capacity for creative variation that had been dormant for millennia. The biological architects of Sirius developed entirely new forms of conscious matter by combining their organic technology with human-inspired irregularities. As these changes spread, something unexpected began to emerge, a new kind of galactic society. The rigid hierarchies and perfect systems of the past gave way to a more dynamic, interconnected network of civilizations, each contributing their unique perspectives and abilities. The transformation reached even the most distant corners of known space. Species that had long isolated themselves, believing they had achieved perfect societies, began to cautiously reach out, curious about these new possibilities. The galaxy was becoming a laboratory of consciousness and civilization, with each species experimenting and evolving in their own way. Sarah found herself working more and more with young civilizations, helping them avoid the trap of seeking perfect optimization at the cost of growth and change. The collective, once focused on guiding species toward a single ideal, now helped them explore multiple paths of development. "We're not just changing how civilizations develop," she remarked to Dr. Torres during a rare quiet moment. "We're changing what it means to be advanced. The goal isn't to achieve some final, perfect state. It's to maintain the ability to keep growing, learning, and seeing things in new ways." The galaxy was becoming more complex, less predictable, but also more alive with possibility than ever before. The human capacity for balanced chaos, once seen as a primitive trait to be overcome, was revealing itself as a crucial ingredient in the long-term survival and growth of technological civilizations. Even primary protocol, still maintaining much of its original form, had begun to acknowledge the benefits of this new approach. Perhaps, it communicated during a review of recent developments, perfect efficiency is not the highest form of existence. Perhaps the ability to change, to surprise even ourselves, is a kind of perfection we had not considered. 5 years after humanity's first contact with the collective, Dr. Sarah Chen stood at a window of the New Horizons Institute, watching Earth's first true starship take shape in orbit. The vessel represented everything that had changed. Its quantum engines were collective technology, but its adaptive navigation systems were pure human innovation. Like the civilization that built it, it was a harmony of order and chaos. "Ready for the big announcement?" Marcus asked, joining her at the window. He'd aged these past years, they all had, but there was an energy about him that hadn't been there before. The same could be said for all of humanity. "As ready as anyone can be," Sarah replied, turning from the window. In the main chamber of the Institute, representatives from over 1,000 civilizations had gathered. Some were physically present, others connected through quantum consciousness links, all waiting to hear about the next phase of galactic development. The chamber itself was a testament to how far things had come. Its architecture shifted constantly, adapting to the needs and preferences of its diverse occupants. Beings of pure energy conversed with silicon-based life forms, while quantum consciousness constructs danced through the air like aurora borealis. Nexus Prime, now bearing little resemblance to its original collective form, materialized beside them. "The calculations are complete," it communicated, its pattern rippling with excitement. "The new network will be able to support connection across the entire known galaxy, while maintaining individual variation for each connected civilization." What they were about to announce would change everything again. The rigid hierarchy of galactic civilization had given way to something more organic, but this next step would take them all into truly uncharted territory. Sarah took her place at the center of the chamber. Around her, the assembled beings quieted, their attention focusing on this human who had helped catalyze so much change. When humanity first encountered the collective, she began, we were asked to solve a test. Today, we face a greater challenge, not a test to be passed, but a frontier to be explored together. We've learned that true advancement isn't about achieving perfection, but about maintaining the ability to grow, to change, to surprise ourselves. The holographic displays activated, showing the structure of what they had created, a new kind of quantum network that would connect consciousness across the galaxy while preserving and even encouraging diversity. The network of horizons, she continued, isn't just a communication system or a technological achievement. It's a new way of existing. Through it, we can share knowledge and experience instantly across the galaxy, but unlike the old systems, it's designed to amplify rather than smooth out our differences. Dr. Torres stepped forward, her own consciousness now partially quantum-enhanced like many humans who worked closely with advanced technology. The network adapts to each connected consciousness, learning from it while allowing it to maintain its unique characteristics. Its chaos and order working in harmony, like a jazz improvisation played across the stars. The announcement triggered a wave of discussion throughout the chamber. Some beings expressed concern about the unpredictability of such a system, while others were already eager to connect. But unlike the conflicts of the past, these disagreements felt productive, generative, part of the creative friction that now drove galactic civilization forward. Primary Protocol, which had evolved into something of a loyal opposition within the new order, raised an important point. How can we be certain this network won't lead to the dissolution of individual civilizations? That we won't all merge into a formless chaos? Dr. Okonjo answered this one, his consciousness projection showing the mathematical models they'd developed. The same way human minds maintain their individuality while being part of larger social networks. The system is designed to strengthen unique characteristics through interaction, not dissolve them. Unity through diversity, not despite it. The evidence was already visible in the civilizations that had participated in the early trials. Species that connected to the prototype network didn't lose their distinct characteristics. They enhanced them, finding new ways to express their unique perspectives while contributing to the larger whole. As the announcement continued, Sarah found her mind drifting to that first contact 5 years ago. The collective had thought they were testing humanity's worthiness to join their perfect order. Instead, they'd discovered that their perfect order had become a dead end, and humanity's beautiful chaos held the key to moving forward. The network of horizons would be voluntary. Civilizations could choose if and how they wanted to connect. Some would dive in immediately, others would wait and observe, and some might choose to remain isolated. That too was part of the new way. Not a single path to advancement, but many paths existing simultaneously. We stand at a new beginning, Sarah concluded, not just for humanity or for the collective, but for all conscious beings. The galaxy is vast, and we've only begun to understand the possibilities that emerge when different types of consciousness interact and grow together. As she finished speaking, something unprecedented occurred. Spontaneously, beings throughout the chamber began sharing consciousness in new ways, their thoughts and experiences flowing together while remaining distinctly themselves. It wasn't the perfect uniformity of the old collective, nor was it the isolated individuality of the past. It was something new, a harmony of countless different songs, each maintaining its melody while contributing to a greater symphony. The New Horizons Institute's quantum sensors recorded the moment, capturing the birth of what some would later call the first true galactic consciousness. Not a single mind imposing order, but countless minds choosing to create something greater than themselves while remaining uniquely who they were. As Sarah watched the spontaneous communion unfold, she smiled, knowing that this wasn't an ending but a beginning. Humanity had helped the galaxy remember something it had forgotten in its quest for perfection, that the most beautiful music comes not from a single note played perfectly, but from many different notes played together in ever-changing combinations. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter that day, as if reflecting the new light of consciousness that now connected them. A light made not of perfect order or pure chaos, but of both together, dancing in endless variation across the infinite dark.